G'day all, James here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the Visual Basic Editor with some default settings that I think will be the best for beginning out coding. All right, so these settings, you don't have to do these settings. This is just the way that I think it would be good to set up. The more experience you have with the environment, the more you'll be able to customize it to suit your requirements. But what we're going to do is just configure the environment. I'm not going to go into each of the options in depth. We'll cover each of those options in another video or another series of videos for each of the different types of windows and things like that. But this is really just the basic configuration to get you started. Okay, let's go. Okay, so we've got Excel up. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get the developer tab on the ribbon. Now I know a lot of you will already know how to do this, and this is just for the people who don't know how to get it so that they can get to the development environment. The shortcut key, of course, to do that is Alt F11, and I could press that whether I have the developer tab up or not. But what I'll do is I'll just get the developer tab up. So on the ribbon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to click on Customize Ribbon. I'm going to go down to the Developer tab and I'll check that box and then click OK. And then what you'll see now is you'll see that I have the Developer tab on the ribbon now. And under the Developer tab, you've got some options here, and the option we need is the Visual Basic Editor here. All right, as I said, we could press Alt F11. Now I'm just going to record a really trivial macro just so that we've got something to look at when we go across to our developer environment. So I'm going to click on record. I'm just going to call this macro sample and click on OK. And I'm just going to click on another cell so we've got something. And now I'm going to stop recording. So we've got this sample macro. So now I'm going to go across to the developer environment. Alt F11 is the shortcut. And you can see when I come across to the development environment, you've got a pre-dated IDE. I call it an integrated development environment because a lot of other languages, that's the terminology. It's actually called the Visual Basic Editor, but it's got very classical command bars, the old style of doing it back from Excel version 5. All right. If I scroll down here, this is what we call our project window. And it's a dockable window. All right, so there are several other dockable windows around the bottom. You can see the immediate window down here. Now, your environment will look something like this, but what it might have is it might also have a properties window. Let me just dock it in so that we can see it. Oh, if I can get it right. At least I'm showing you how to dock the windows. All right. You might have a properties window looking like that. All right. The properties window is great when you're doing forms, and we'll cover that later. You might use it a little bit to rename modules and to look at some of the sheet and workbook properties, but I tend to just get rid of it, knowing I can get it back by pressing F4, or I can go under View and I can see the properties window here to show it. All right. The other windows, the other dockable windows, you've got the immediate window down the bottom, but you have a lot of other dockable windows that help you do debugging, like the locals window, the call stack, the watches, and find. All right, those windows can get displayed down the bottom here, and as we use them, we'll demonstrate them. But you can move them around and dock them. All right, you can decide which windows are dockable or not, just under Tools, Options, and we can see docking, and you can see which windows are currently dockable, right? And you can decide whether you want to do that or not. Okay, so let's have a look under modules. And if I go to module 1 here, this is where our macro got recorded. And this window is called a child window. All right, so if you've got multiple macro windows, they can be displayed in here. So for example, if I look at the code window for the workbook here, and I double click on it, you can see I have 2 child windows there, and I can tile them side by side if I wanted to compare code between the two horizontally, or I could tile them vertically as well. All right. There are some support windows that appear as child windows too. So example, the object browser, F2. If I bring that up, that appears as a child window as well. And so we can then use, we'll go through that as a separate video again as well. The object, pretty important tool to use to understand the various Excel objects and methods and properties. All right, the last thing I want to show, is the command bars. Not the last thing, but in terms of look and feel, are the command bars at the top. All right, so you can see here there are 4 standard command bars available. We've got debug, edit, standard, and user forms. All right, you can see here I've actually created my own command bar, and the reason for that is I want to fit them all nicely on the top of the window. And if I just use the standard edit, you can see here this is the standard edit command bar, and you can see here it's got a lot of buttons that I don't believe you need on there. So I've basically created my own, which is a cut down version of the edit command bar. So the way I did that is I right clicked on the command bars and I choose customize, and then I clicked on new to create a new toolbar, and I'll call it new toolbar, and I'll click on OK, and here is my new toolbar. And then it's just a case of putting the commands onto the toolbar that you want. Now I can search for the commands in the complete list of commands here and drag them up. For example, I could put a save button on there if I wanted to and drag that up. I can also pull them down from other toolbars as well. So I'm going to take this comment command and I'm going to drag it across. But what I want to do is, if I'm pulling it from another command bar, what I might do is hold the control key down so I make a copy. So that way I'm not destroying the original command bar. And so I can copy all of these buttons across just for the sake of the exercise. And you can see here I've now got my own toolbar that I can go and put somewhere and use. Given that I've already created one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that. So the way I do it is I right click, I choose customize, I go to toolbars, I find my new toolbar, and then I click on delete and delete it. And so I've deleted that toolbar. Now the toolbars are at the top, the command bars are at the top, but I can dock them anywhere as well. So you can see I'm moving this edit bar over to the side and I'm docking it over at the side. I can pull it back and dock it back into the space up the top. So I can put them wherever they like. It's the same with these dockable windows. At the moment they're docked on the left hand side. I could move it over to the right if I wanted to do that. Okay. Now the last couple of things I want to mention are in these child windows, the code editing window. All right, so if I go to tools and go to options, I can go to editor format and I can choose the font I want to choose. Now some of you might be using Courier New as the font, which is okay, but I prefer a denser font like Consalis to use. It's easier to read. I do think you need to use a sans serif font rather than a font like Times Roman, which will be very hard to read. So you can choose the font that you choose. I've got it at 18 points only because I'm going to be doing videos with it, and so it's easier for everybody to read. The other thing you need to do is under the editor tab, you need to make sure auto syntax check is unchecked and require variable declaration is checked. Now if I just move this up, what happens is when you check require variable declaration, each module or each code block that you create will have option explicit at the top. And option explicit forces us to declare our variables. So it's a really good coding practice to do, and it reduces the chance of us getting errors in our code. So really important thing to do, so we require variable check. Now I recommend you take off auto syntax check just as a productivity option, because what I'll do is I'll show you what happens when it's on. So I'm going to turn on auto syntax check and I'm going to click on OK. And then say in my macro, I'm going to write some extra code here, and I'm going to say x equals, and I don't know what it's going to equal, so I press x equals, and then I just press enter. You can see what's happened is, it's saying, hey, this is a compile error. You know, this isn't correct, what you've written, and it's popped up a little dialog box for me. All right, and then I've got to click on OK and go, okay, that's not correct. I'm going to say x equals 1. And then I'm going to say y equals, and I don't know what to do there. And so I do it again, and another box pops up, and I've got to click on the box to dismiss it. All right. So that process can get very annoying after a while. And so what I like to do is I go into options and I turn off auto syntax check. And we still get all of the syntax checking. It just doesn't pop up the dialog box. So if I go x and then go equals and press enter, you can see there's a problem. How do I know there's a problem? Because it's in red, all right? But I don't get the annoying dialog popping up. Okay, so what's happened in this window, in this video, what we've seen how to do is we've seen how to configure our development environment in such a way that it'll make us the most productive. As I said, we'll go through the various bits in separate videos, and we'll dig down into how they all work. We've got the project window here. We've got some other dockable windows for debugging. We've got some child windows sitting in the middle. And then we've got our toolbar with a whole lot of options on the back. Okay, thank you. Have a great time. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.